All right, so for those of you who don't know what I'm about to do, I'm about to talk about the sign of Cancer, right? The fourth sign of the Zodiac, which just happens to share a name with a very deadly disease, okay? Has nothing to do with it. In case you want to know a random thing, the reason why cancer is called cancer, the actual disease, is that the Greeks believed that because it metastasizes and gets hard, it moved like a crab through the body, sideways. So it has the same name as the sign Cancri, which we know as Cancer, the sign. So that's the origin of it. But what I was talking about was God bless the child who has her own. So we were celebrating you, Akila, having your studio. So let's give... And it prompted me to think about when we talk about the child having her own, and we talk about cancer, it brings up a question when we say about the idea of belonging and feeling the sense of connection and trusting that. I have one question for you. What do you call your own, right? What really belongs to you? Now, I want to talk about, and I've mentioned this before, but forgive me, and I'll mention it again. I've talked about one of the emblematic examples of cancer is this very nation, the United States of America, which was born July... Y'all suck. Come on, let's do better than that. July 1776. You've heard this all your life. The American gift of independence and freedom that my people didn't have, but we won't talk about that right now, right? But here's the key thing. July 14th, 1776, we talk about this Cancerian nation, where it's a nation envisioned to kind of bring people of various swaths together. We even have a woman in our harbor here in New York that says, give me your tired, your poor, yearning to be free, your huddled masses, right? The idea of people coming together under one idea of really sharing a sense of belonging. But the United States is at a crisis point and has been for a while, which brings up a critical question about cancer and also even on the personal level. Who are your own? So the question I'm leaving with you today is, as we think about our own, are we only talking about those who are our own by blood? Only those who are owned by race? Only those who are owned by who think like us, feel like us, right? Because there's a broad intersection and definition by which we come to engage. Because the problem with cancer that can happen with cancer, because last year, you might remember, I said, well, what's wrong with cancer, right? So this year, I'm saying something a little different. There's not something wrong with cancer per se. But the problem that can happen with cancer can have a very insular sense of itself. So for instance, like the United States I just talked about, is the country that has the most nuclear weapons separated by 2 oceans and the greatest military in human history, and it's at no risk from any country necessarily invading it. It develops this idea based on a cancer, George W. Bush, of homeland security. Where it becomes insular, we have to protect our own. Now, when you think about our own, we have to go beyond just the sense of what is blood, what belongs to us. Because when you get tied up into just a very small notion of yourself, you have a shrinking self. You have a self that doesn't really get beyond its own boundaries. And cancer can become very insular, very closed off, caught up in sense of emotions, caught up in the sense of how I define myself in relation to what's around me, how I take care of others who belong to me. And we're all prone to it. I'm not just saying, and I'm not just picking on cancers who are here together, right? We're all prone to this insularity. You know, I once, and I'll say this openly, I once was a black nationalist, right? Where I believed that it was only just about us. I didn't care about the other people. I'm being honest. But one thing kind of brought home for me, because we could be in our self-contained unit. I could return to Africa. I could be in Africa and enjoy the splendor of Africa and just think like we can be together. But we've been here, right? That happened before. And then other people come. Other people will mess up your stuff. So if you think you can be in your own contained unit, you're living in a delusion. Some people will come around and mess up your stuff. So you have to understand, how are you going to broaden your sense to also not just necessarily include other people, but even be situated and grounded yourself. This is the country that's going to struggle with this the most moving forward. I often don't make mundane predictions, right? But I'm telling you that this country is going to have some serious challenges in the next 20 years about who it is. And I'm telling you, you can be on board in thinking beyond that to help this country not deal with that same problem at the scale that may come to it. Because don't think that this country is immune to what happened to Nazi Germany. It's not. I don't mean to scare you. I'm not trying to say something to kind of get y'all like riled up. But I'm bringing something to your attention that happened at the individual level. Are you closing yourself off from possibilities? Are you closing yourself off from people who could be in your life that support you, that could help you grow, that could help you develop? Are you just trying to keep a sense of safety and security without thinking that a broader base of security? There's a book, I would recommend it, even though I wouldn't take it too seriously, The 48 Laws of Power. One of the things that Robert Greene talks about is building a fortress. And one of the things he says is, don't build a fortress. Because when you build a fortress, you insulate yourself, right? But you don't really shield yourself. You just make it easier for people to be able to kind of have you in a very small, contained unit to be able to get to you. That's different than being at the hub. A hub means that you actually are at the center and it spokes and moves out. So Cancer, I'm inviting you to think about how you become more of a hub. How you centralize yourself to be able to spring and be out and be connected to other things and not insulate yourself, not put yourself in a fortress, not lock yourself in a shell. The more that you are in the shell, the more that you are prone to be able to be, I hate to put it this way, even crab meat. I'm just keeping it real. Because then you can't pay attention to the shell. You can't pay attention because you're insular. The same thing that happens when they talk about crabs in a barrel, right? Because they're just thinking about themselves, and the crabs could be together and thinking about how they're supporting the sense of the greater whole. So Cancer has the challenge of how to be insular in a different way, how to be secure in a different way, how to create insularity by pulling out and reaching out and pulling in. Broaden your reach. That's what we're compelled to do now. Thank you.